So here we have our riders for 2023. And we believe this is the perfect moment for us to understand a little bit more about our team, our EF team, about cycling, and all the similarities that we have between, you know, a professional life, sales, and sports. So thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for having me.
No, that's great. JP, I've read a phrase from you in Twitter that I believe is the best way to start this conversation. Can I read?
Yeah.
I've dedicated my life to professional cycling, anti-doping, and aggravating people with no sense of humor. So could you please share with us your cycling history and a little bit more about your sense of humor?
Wow. So my cycling history, I mean, in a way, I've been involved in cycling my entire life. I started racing when I was 12 years old. Went to my first international competitions at like 15, went to the world championships at 17, and turned professional at 19 years old. And so then from there, I raced a 10-year career as a rider, and then slowly transitioned into a management role with this team after I was done racing professionally. So I've been in it my whole life. So that's the that's the story of my life as a cyclist. I've raced the Tour de France. I've raced the World Championships. I've never raced in Brazil, actually, interestingly, but I have raced in Colombia and Costa Rica and Venezuela. I certainly have a love for South America. And so as far as, let's see, well, the anti-doping part of it, that's sort of one of the classic tenets of this team, is that we have a very, very strong ethical stance and a very strong sense of fairness, and that this team, we really put fairness before before anything else. So the final result is great, but if you didn't achieve the final result in a fair way, then it's not so much. As far as aggravating people with no sense of humor, boy, I don't know that. I guess that's just I tend to have a rather dry sense of humor, and don't really mind if I say things that are a little bit off color, or and so it's always meant in a lighthearted way, but certainly it's never bothered me in my life to upset people a little bit.
Great. That's great. Thank you so much. And JP, what are the main challenges to manage a cycling team?
So the main challenge is like with any other business, that you're dealing with people. I mean, people are always the biggest challenge of any management equation, and the people in professional cycling are always, they're exceptionally challenging. And people say, well, why is it that they're exceptionally challenging? And it's real simple, that high achieving people that are really driven to win, that are really driven to achieve, that are really driven to be competitive, tend to be very difficult to manage as well. Because when you're looking at a team concept, you've got all these individuals that they all want to win for themselves, and they all have their personal objectives, and they've all got their personal goals. And so to pull that together into a singular objective for the entire team, that's the biggest challenge, because you have to kind of convince everyone to not to give up their personal goals, but maybe just to change their personal goal a little bit so that it fits into what the team's goal is, what the overall objective is. And I feel like that's sort of 90% of every day of my life, is dealing with with highly focused and competitive professional athletes, getting them to believe in the overall vision of the organization.
What a challenge.
Yeah.
And definitely, it's at the end of the day, it's all about people, right? It's independent of the business. So it's the dealing with people. And I believe it what makes also our day is completely different. You know, we have opportunities to get amazed with people. They teach us. It's a learning every day dealing with people as well. So that's really nice. And JV, the question that everybody wants to hear: why EF has a cycling team? We are an educational company. This a bit is not clear for everyone that is still inside of the company. And taking this, what is the is there is any similarities between EF and the cycling world?
Sure. So to answer the first question, the reason EF has a cycling team, and this is a very business answer, to be honest. I think people are sort of looking for a more like an emotional reason, but it's a very business oriented answer, in that cycling is an incredibly efficient way to positively put out your brand in the entire world. So if you give in any given country, right, the Tour de France, which is cycling's largest event, now is the Tour de France, or I should say, is professional cycling the most popular sport in, I don't know, in any given country? Not really. It's maybe Belgium and Colombia are the two places where cycling is like the number one most popular sport.
Mhm.
But here's the difference: is that, for instance, like American football. American football is the most popular sport in the United States. In Brazil, American football is zero.
Zero.
Exactly. So conversely, like ice hockey. Ice hockey is really big in Canada and really big in Sweden. But in France or Spain or in Brazil, ice hockey doesn't exist. Cycling is always sort of one of the top 6 or 7 sports in almost any country, right? If we go obviously to France, okay, it's hugely popular there. If you go to the US, it's popular there. If you go to Canada, it's popular there. South Africa, Australia, Japan, and so it's a sport that the Tour de France is broadcast in more nations than any other sporting event outside the World Cup of football,
Yeah.
right? And so, but here's the difference: is that you can't name a World Cup football team after a private company. So you can't,
Exactly.
yeah. So what EF? The reason EF has a cycling team is it is the most economically efficient way to spread the EF name throughout the entire world and just have touch points all over. And maybe some people in Brazil are cycling fans and other people aren't, or whatever. But if you watch just a little bit of the Tour de France one day, you'll recognize the EF name and you'll have a positive image to that. It's healthy, it's fast, it's performance driven, it's colorful. And so even if you just see it one day, sitting in a bar watching the Tour de France in a country where cycling's maybe not so popular, but you see it, you're going to have a positive image association there. So when that brand comes to you, later on for making a decision whether you want to purchase a product or not, you're going to have a positive association. So that's the reason. There's no other sport in the world that you can name the team after your brand and spread it throughout the entire world.
That's perfect. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And it's just amazing. I just didn't become a one yet,
You
but
know,
but I'm a big fan.
one of the key metrics, or probably the key metric that we use, is what we call ad equivalency value, which is this is how we sort of measure how successful the team is at putting the brand out into the world. So ad equivalency value just basically means, like, if you went out into the marketplace and wanted to buy that amount of advertising, in radio, on Instagram, on newspapers, on website, whatever, you just wanted to purchase that amount of publicity, like how much would it cost you to get the same amount of positive branding as the team gives you? And that number, we think this year will be over $100 million in ad equivalency value for the team.
Wow.
So it's something we're very proud of.
That's really nice. That's great. That's great. What about our uniforms? Because
Yeah,
it became like a hit around the cycling world.
yeah.
Everybody gets crazy about the uniform. What is behind that?
Well, we've had some really creative designers at Rafa and Palace, and honestly, Philip Holt is a real, like, he loves the design. He doesn't really maybe understand so much about the actual sport, but he loves the design. And so he's really involved in the design of the uniform, and he's got a really good creative design mind. But yeah, we've just had great designers, and we've had a management team that's willing to take the risk to do a design that's completely different from anything else.
No, that's great. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see. We outstand through words. It's amazing. JP, one more question. We know that in cycling team that compete in a race are composed of several athletes. It's 8, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Where each one of them plays a role, and what relationship can be made in the evaluation of the performance of a cycling team and a team within a company?
Well, there's a lot of similarities. And this is hard. This is again the big management challenge of a cycling team, is that you have a team of 8 riders, but on any given day in the race, the focus is really on one of the riders out of the 8, and the other 7 are actually there to help that one rider. Now, of course, on different days, the one rider that's the focus, that changes. Oh, sorry about that. I don't.
Don't worry, don't worry.
Okay. The focal point changes from day to day, but on any given day, it's one rider that's really trying to win the race, and the other 7 are actually they're blocking the wind. They're chasing down riders on other teams. They're helping that one rider conserve energy all the way to the last moment. And so that's hard, because end of the day, if that rider wins, he wins. The other 7 teammates don't get to, put their arms up in the air, and the other 7 teammates are only there to assist. And so it's always a challenge to get everyone to see that, yeah, today was his day or her day, but tomorrow can be yours, or the next day, or the next week, and that sometimes you have to sort of not be in the spotlight and step back and help somebody else be in the spotlight. And to me, and again, all of these athletes, when they were younger, when they grew up, they were the regional champion and the city champion and the national champion, and some of them even junior world champions. And then you step into the professional rank, and everybody was an old junior world champion. Everybody was an old junior national champion. So, everyone is at that very high level. And so then how do you determine who's the best to try to win on that day? Well, you always have to choose the person best suited to that moment. And it's not personal. And it doesn't mean that somebody else can't be successful the next day. But, if the course is really hilly or really hot or really cold or really flat, you choose different people for different moments that's best suited for the team. And to me, that's a great lesson inside of a management team, is that not everyone gets the spotlight every day, but if you can share it, and if you can help somebody else achieve what they want to achieve, later on they'll help you achieve what you want to achieve. And what I always tell my guys is, if you win the race, the first thing that comes out of your mouth to the media, because naturally you come across and say, I was so great and I was awesome and I beat this guy, whatever. No, I said the first thing that comes out of your mouth when you win a race is thank you to your teammates.
It's the beauty of the cycling for me. This is amazing. And JP, we have some great names, no, in our team. What make a rider a champion?
There's a lot of different things. I mean, at the base, of course, there's very basic physiological, Anna. At the base level, there are some very physiological attributes that your body has to be able to deliver oxygen incredibly well, right? So there are these natural talents that you can't see. Like, in a lot of sports, you can kind of see if they're built for that sport. Like if, an American football player, they're really big or they have big muscles or whatever, right? But in cycling, you can't really see it. You can be tall, you can be short, but the core of it is that your body is actually able to deliver a lot of oxygen really well. And that's that's the first thing. Then you have to have incredible endurance, and endurance, physical endurance and mental endurance. That's because there's no way around it. These races are 3 weeks long. It's 200 kilometers every day. You have to wake up the next morning and do it again and do it again. So you have to be incredibly robust physically and robust mentally. Then you have to be willing to really do the training. When you training, a lot of people kind of think of like physical training as like you have like one really great day, and then and then when you don't have such a great day, then you don't have to work out as hard or whatever else. But the way to really achieve your goals in physical training and mental training is that you're willing to be consistent each and every day. Good days, bad days, mediocre days, great days. That it just every day that you're being consistent over a very long period of time. And because people ask me, how long does it take to train for the Tour de France? And the answer is 10 years. It's not, it's not you. Yeah, I mean, you can go train to finish a marathon. If you want to train to finish a marathon and you run it in 3.5 hours or 4 hours, which is you can do that. You can train 1 year, 6 months. But the Tour de France, it's literally 10 years. You start training when you're 12 years old, and you maybe finally get to arrive at doing your first Tour de France at 22 years old. So that takes an enormous amount of consistency just over a very long period of time.
JB, now let's talk about failures as they are part of life. So can we explore this theme a bit? Learning with failures, I would say. What did the failures teach you? Where did they take you? And how important is the resilience and perseverance to achieve the goals?
Yeah, I mean, so in bike racing, if you win 20 races in a year, that's incredibly successful, right? 20 races a year is a great, great, great season. But that's considering that we race over 200 days every single year. So 90% of the time, any cycling team, even the best cycling team in the world, 90% of the time, they're losing. And so it's really hard to always say, okay, we didn't win today, so what can we do tomorrow? What can we do? So failing or not winning is an exercise in constant self-improvement. It's looking at every single detail of where there were mistakes made, where, because sometimes you can say, oh, it was just bad luck that we didn't win today. Well, that might be true, but that's the easy answer. That's the easy way out, to say, oh, it was bad luck. Instead, if you say, well, we got a flat tire and the flat tire prevented us from winning. Okay, well, that was bad luck, but let's look at the details. Like, what kind of tire were we using? Was it the correct selection of tire for that day? When the flat tire occurred, were you, toward the front of the peloton where you could see obstacles and, junk in the road? Or were you at the back where you can't see anything, and so you ran into something and you never saw it? So you can look at, there are tons of areas that maybe you made a small mistake that contributed to the flat tire. So in the end, it wasn't really bad luck. And it was something that can be examined, and you can say, yep, there was a small mistake there, and next time we're not going to make that mistake. And that's what failures are for, is just to constantly examine the small details to see how you can eliminate those errors the next time around. Amazing. And by the way, never going to be perfect. and everybody else is doing the same thing. So like, you stop making mistakes and you go up, but then the other people that stop making mistakes, and it's just like this.
That's great. And about the resilience, just to close this theme, because I think it's not easy to lose 90% of the time, So how do you work this with your team to believe it and to keep going?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you by the time you make it to the level of professional cycling, you're already a very resilient person. But we typically, I think a lot of people think, like, if the team doesn't perform well one day, that we come afterwards with the athletes and we say, you did this bad and you did this bad. And, like the almost the stereotypical, like, post race or post event coach saying you guys all screwed up and you're no good and you better be better tomorrow. And we aren't like that, like, because we know that in order to be persistent in chasing your goals, you have to be positive every single day. Yes, you can acknowledge mistakes, and once in a while you can be negative and say, damn it, we really screwed up that one. But most of the time you have to be positive with the athletes and say, you know, we're going to change this for tomorrow and forget about today, because you already know that you made a mistake. I don't even need to tell you. We're changing this for tomorrow and we're moving on. We're going forward.
That's nice. Thank you so much.
All
To
right, thank you.
finalize, JV, we are in an important moment at EF Brazil, and our goal is to double our volume. But for this to happen, we need each member of this team to ride like a pro. So what should be the priorities of the team that wants to become a champion?
End of the day, persistence every day. You got to do it every single day. It's just on your bad days, you still have to show up. And on the good days, you can celebrate the good days, but on the bad days and the mediocre days, you still have to show up. And that's not easy. And sometimes, you know, you want to stop, or you want to take a day off, or you want to, you know, just not be focused for one day. But your bad days, if you can stay focused on your bad days, that's when the biggest improvements are made. And that's when the biggest changes will occur. So my advice is, if you want to double the volume, is focus on making, it's not so much about making your good days great. It's about making your bad days okay.
Amazing answer. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations for the team. I know we're doing like a super good season, and hopefully we're gonna bring some of them to Brazil really soon.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Take care and hope to meet you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.